right, gentlemen, so the first question is directed at all of you, and I'm going to start with Mr. Colbert. You're going to be the first one to respond. Okay? And for the group questions, everyone has 2 minutes to answer. Candidates can make a rebuttal once after all the candidates have answered. Rebuttal will be 1 minute. So the first question directed at Mr. Colbert. The village's massive overdevelopment boom is a major point of focus in this election. Some people like it, while others say it's too much. How do you each feel about ongoing development projects and developments in the future? Mr. Colbert.
Thank you, Steve. First of all, the development of a community has to be looked at with great effort, and you have to look at it in how it's going to control parking, how it's going to control the resources of water, sewer, how it's going to evolve in how buildings are going to be for travel throughout the village. And one of the things I think what happened with the original Bethesda complex was that it was something new. It was going to be the first time around that it was going to be a big apartment house, and I don't think everybody really realized what was going to happen after that. Then all of a sudden we had the 250, and then we had the master plan, the green area, and then we had Corpus Christi's property. And people have said to me, why Mineola? Why do we have to have 1,075 units in the village of Mineola? Why isn't it somewhere else? Listen, we'll take the 350 units and see how that works. And the trouble with the one problem with the Bethesda is that there's no really services around it. You'd have to travel down Main Street. You'd have to go up to on Old Country Road to go to the deli. There's nothing really around it. There's no cleaners. There's no drugstore. And it's something which has to really be developed, and really wasn't developed when you put all 4 properties together. And then beside the 4 properties, there's another 6 properties that are scheduled to come into being into the village. So we have to really take a look at what's going to happen with these other 6 units also.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to move along right down the line to Mr. Paul Cusato. Same question.
You know, you have to be blind not to see what's happening to our village. The incentive bonus money coming in, $1 million from the Winter Research, $3 million from the Mineola Madeira, and money already being received from the old Lipa building at 250, which is now called number 1 3rd Avenue. Purchasing new fire truck, new band shell, redoing our entire park. This whole concept of building is benefiting our program, our village, and our downtown. We're continuing having hearings on people who want to build in the downtown, restaurants who want to build and make our village a vibrant area once again. So I'm definitely in favor of what's going on, and you know what? We're going to continue to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to have an opportunity to address this issue throughout the night, so what I would like to do is I'm going to finish my opening statement, and then I will address the issue in my rebuttal.
That's fine.
These are challenging times, but I, along with this board, have dealt with challenges head on. We have not kicked the can down the road. We continue to address the challenges that were left us from previous administrations. We address the challenges before us now, and we are better prepared than ever to address the challenges that may come down the line. In my opinion, that is what government is elected to do. So again, to answer my first question, why do I do this? Why did I do this? Because I believe Mineola is a great community, the best. I want to ensure that our future is brighter, more prosperous, and more secure than ever. By every measure, from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal, from Newsday to the Long Island Business News, from Vision Long Island to the Nassau County Planning Commission, we are absolutely on the right track. I think that we can all agree that Mineola is in a far better place today than it was 15 years ago. We need responsible stewardship of this village's future, and I know that this board will continue to do that in service. Thank you.
Mr. Werther, your question 6.
Thank you very much, everyone. I sat on the board when the initial proposal was being made for the Winston and then subsequently for the property over at 250 Old Country Road. One of the most alluring things to me was when Dr. Pearl Kramer got up there for the Palomani organization and said that there's going to be a tremendous influx of taxes. Now, I'm not a big fan of taxes, but when somebody else is paying them and it would give me close to a 10% break on my school taxes, I was for that. The other thing is that those two initial buildings were south of the tracks. They were segregated naturally from the rest of our village, from the areas that have one-family homes in them, and therefore wouldn't create too much of a problem. Old Country Road was a major access and egress point. For example, the one at the Citibank building right now is going to create a nightmare. There is Second Street, there's Main Street, and then there's an access point through our train station. Let me tell you briefly a little story of a gentleman named Jeremiah O'Carroll. He came here from Ireland to live the American dream. He built a beautiful little pub with really great food. You should try it if you haven't. And he wanted to start a soft-serve ice cream parlor down on Station Plaza North. He was told by the board that it would create too much of a traffic jam over there, so he couldn't do it. And Mr. O'Carroll sued us. Unfortunately, he lost. But that's the same access and egress point that the Village Green property is going to be using. And let me give you one other thing to think about. The folks in the Village Green properties don't have a hell of a lot of parking. My bet, my prognostication is that everyone in there is going to be buying the commuter parking pass. They're going to put their cars in our commuter lots, creating a nightmare for our commuters from the rest of the village to park in. Thank you.
So true.
And I believe Mr. Pereira, you had said you wanted to make a rebuttal right here?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
We go in order, or?
Mr. Colbert, would you have a rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay, you please get pressed down.
I had spoken earlier regarding the developers and the taxes. And if you look at the taxes in which are going to be called pilots now, they're no longer going to be called taxes, they're pilots. And by the way, the properties are now going to be owned by the IDA and not by the developers. That the school pilot for the 250 Old Country Road for the first year is $80,362. The first pilot for the Winston, or which is the Moderator, is $603,750. This is school. And the Second Street is $210,000. I have no idea how the disparity of between $165,000, $603,000, and $210,000 come about. And it's not fair to us taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert. Mr. Cusato, you have a chance to rebut.
As you know, the school district hired an outside firm to do the studies we did. And it's interesting that Mr. Hendricks, who led the group, stated that what you're seeing in your community is cutting edge. So that's pretty nice from an outside firm.
Mr. Pereira, please.
I don't think the 2 minutes that I have allotted are going to be enough for me to correct some inaccuracies, but I will do my
It's
best.
1 minute, sir. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
1 minute, okay. Well, let's start with this, and then I'll respond throughout the night. But Mr. Colbert, as you know, the taxes start at the starting point of what the assessed valuation is now. Since 250 Old Country Road was a owned building, it was at zero. There were no taxes paid, it was tax exempt. That explains why it starts at a lower threshold than the Moderator, which was on the tax roll, and hence the explanation. But if you'd like, I will spend all night educating you on the facts so that we don't scare people into believing something that they don't know. And by the way, since you're bringing out numbers, I'd like you to bring out the numbers. How much in school taxes were they paying before any of these developments? Any of them?
I'm glad Mr. Pereira brought that up. I'd like to correct one misconception. The building that was known as the Keystone Building was on the tax roll until the MTA bought it. In 2005, when the MTA bought it, we were told by council that it would continue to be on the tax rolls because it was not being occupied by the MTA. We continued to send them tax notifications, As a matter of fact, we even put a tax lien on the property because we as a village believed that it was, and from bad advice of council, we believed that it was a taxable entity. I have here, for anybody who wants to see it, the result of the Supreme Court case where they slapped us in 2014 and told us the MTA was not taxable, but we believed it was. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And we're going to move along to the second question. This one is directed at Mr. Paul Cusato. Within the last year, the board approved the Village Green and Searing Avenue housing development projects. These are just two of the apartment complexes that have been added to Mineola's downtown recently, as well as a steady stream of new businesses. How would you respond to those who say downtown redevelopment is happening too fast?
You know, go back a few years when you saw the vacant county buildings on Willis and Old Country Road, when you saw a vacant building at 250, when the Culture Street School was left vacant, and the church probably would have been, what's the word? Just, been gone if not for bankrupt. Thank you. If not for these developments, I don't think it's going too fast. I think we're on a great stride here. We have passed the moratorium back in December of last year. We have the opportunity to look at future projects. So I think we're okay. I have no problem with where we've been. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Butler?
Did you get the sign for Paul Pereira?
No, it's okay. I think everybody knows who we are up here.
Paul Pereira, microphone, everybody.
Well,
Yes,
it's your
okay.
advantage to have it up there.
We'll put it up. We'll put it up. Thank you.
They know who you are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You know, that has also been stated inaccurately, that we're moving really fast. Well, let's put a little historical perspective. While Mr. Colbert was mayor is when the master plan was started, okay? He is the one that initiated the master plan committee. While Mr. Werther was trustee, and I wasn't even on the board or even thinking about being on the board, is when the master plan was adopted. Before I was elected on the board in 2008, what is today the Moderator was approved. I didn't even vote on it. By the time I got on the board in 2008, it was already approved. That building just opened within the last 6 years. That means from beginning to end, that is nearly a decade for that development, that specific development to take place. I don't think that's rushing. We had numerous hearings. We've had as many hearings as the public has wanted. And so to say that we're rushing and this is very quick, and even if you look at 250 Old Country Road, that started while Mr. Werther was still on the board. Those hearings, and when you go back to the negotiations before that, when the developer is first buying the parcels and putting them together, we're talking years and years and years, and that probably will not open for a decade after it initially started. So that's not fast. Traffic studies have been done, water impact studies have been done, sewer impact studies have been done, parking studies have been done, and in terms of responding to, I believe that it was Mr. Werther, just to put it in perspective, the Mineola Moderator, which is at 70% capacity, so hundreds of residents living there right now, one commuter pass that has been taken out for the commuter parking lot. These people can practically crawl to the train station. They're not going to take a commuter lot. And furthermore, recently, we've made it a law that in order to develop, you have to provide the parking free of charge, included in the rent. You cannot charge additionally. Thank you.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions we have is that we actually need any more development in the village at all. To say we're going too fast or too slow assumes that you want to have this development in the village. We put the initial 2 buildings in a commercial area, again, where it doesn't have an impact on our commuters, where it doesn't have an impact on our single-family residences. We're starting to encroach in that area. We're starting to bring Queens to our beloved village. We survived for over 100 years without this type of development in our village. And all of a sudden, these things are popping up, and again, without any benefit to us. Where does it take us? If you take a look at the assessment rolls, my predictions came true. With the assessment rolls, they would have thrown off about, the 2 buildings on Old Country Road would have thrown off about $7.5 million in school taxes. And if you look at the typical, or look at the school budget, which is $86 million, out of which $80 million is raised by taxes, you would have gotten between a 9 and a 10% reduction in your tax bill. $500 and not $535 actually for my little slice of heaven on Andrews Road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Colbert, would you like to rebut?
Isn't that a rebuttal already?
You started, you started.
Yes.
I'm finished.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
We're getting along here. The development of the Village Green, and if you take a look at the property as it is now, where the bank is, behind the bank is a parking lot. Then there's a secondary lot behind that lot, which is used by boxes. And then you have up to the far right, you have the Girl Scout house, the old Girl Scout house. And then you have a couple buildings which I think is owned by Foxes also. Now on the other side, on the north side, you have a new Spanish restaurant, which is, by the way, opened by a local Mineola boy. And then you have it's going to be a hamburger spot, and I guess there's going to be some kind of a dairy, and then you have St. James, you have a deli, you have a pharmacy, you have a locksmith, and then on the very second corner there you have a dressmaker. And that area from the barber shop to the dressmaker up to the going on Main Street is all going to become another apartment house. And what happens when we get rid of the 8 parking spots, which the village is going to make $175,000 now, but we need parking in that area. And when you add another restaurant where the green is, and you only allow, I think it was something like 32 spots for that restaurant, where are the other people going to start paying for parking if they're not able to park their car? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colbert. And we're going to move along right now to a question for Mr. Werther. Mr. Werther, you said that the village has become overdeveloped and urbanized. If development isn't the answer, what changes, if any, would you implement to make Mineola attractive to new businesses and residents?
Well, there's a couple of things that I would advocate. Number one, I've been a big fan of a business improvement district for a while. Business improvement district, working with the chamber, and this is something I did have a conversation with the officers in the chamber about, would be able to raise modest, very, very small taxes just from the businesses, but those taxes would have to be used by the bid for the promotion of businesses within our village. We could set it up so that the president of the chamber would automatically become president of the bid, so there wouldn't be any kind of competition between the two. The second thing, and this is something unfortunately that we can't go forward with, would be a reduction in the rents. Now, the way you can easily reduce the rents is if you could reduce the tax burden on the landlords. And that was, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to have these projects come up on the south side of Old Country Road. If you factor in the 2 projects, again, that have a 20-year tax abatement on the north side, that would have probably given close to a 20% tax reduction. And if a developer comes up, by the way, and says, hey, I need this thing or I can't build it, do what my friend Marvin Naddis, who's the mayor of North Hills, did. What he did is he tied the tax abatement to the percentage that the project was full. Mr. Pereira made the observation that the Moderator is 70% full. I think it's a little bit more than that. I looked at their website today. There's only 53 apartments left out of 300 plus. And what that tells you is that their tax abatement would almost be gone. And the monies that the village is getting in the community host agreement would have come to us anyhow if they were paying normal village taxes. And that would have made the business community a bit easier. Thank you.
Any rebuttals? Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Pereira.
Thank you. Actually, I heard 2 things there. So if you're a business owner here, what Mr. Werther says is he wants to raise your taxes and lower your rents. That's what I heard. And I do agree with him on the business improvement district, but we're going to do that. We're doing that without having the businesses bear the burden of paying more taxes for a business improvement district, or by having to lower their rents. What we did is we hired an outside expert who's going to get HUD money, grants, block grants, to improve the facades of our downtown. So what we're going to do, not with your money, but with federal money that comes through the county and comes to us, we're going to approach these stores and we're going to say, we'll pay 75% of your improvements and you pay 25% so that we can have, very similar to some communities such as Post Avenue and Westbury, we can have a uniform and kind of similar storefronts. And we're going to do that without telling the businesses that they have to lower their rents and pay more taxes so that somebody can sweep their sidewalks or put out potted plants. We're going to do that for them. And this development enables us to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Cusato or Colbert.
I remember when Port Washington was talking about a BID, and in fact that it was a very bad idea, I thought. I don't know how it's working in Port Washington, but as was said here, it's an increase in taxes to the business area, and basically these businesses, these mom and pop shops, don't need any more expenses than they already have. I don't understand we're going through the facades now of the building when we haven't finished the paving, and it seems that we're jumping all over the place. I understand that the Fairwind Pharmacy is going to be the first one, and so be it, because they're already in the process of doing it. But then again, this goes right back to planning again, ladies and gentlemen. If we're going to hem-haw all over the village and not finish any specific spot, and besides that, they go on the cleanliness of the village. The cleanliness of the village is horrible. It is dirty. It's not clean. I had a project where we cleaned it up on Saturdays. If you didn't put your garbage out in front of your place, we fined you. And we paid for the cleaning up of, because it just didn't, it's just not right.
Okay, thank you,
The
Mr.
villages
Colbert.
are not clean.
All right, now we move along to another question. This one is directed at Mr. Paul Pereira. You voiced your support of a new development in the village. Do you think that Mineola has the ability to handle all the traffic that will come with the new apartments and businesses coming to the village?
Thank you. I think that we need to separate two things here. You know, smart growth and transit-oriented development is not the same thing as urbanization. So I don't want Queens here either. Queens would be if we put an apartment on Andrews or on Emory, on Argyle, or Mineola Boulevard. We're putting these apartments where none of you here from your house can see it, but yet you're going to reap the benefits of it. And in terms of parking and traffic, you understand that developers buy properties to develop them. They're not going to turn them into empty lots or parks, as much as we would like them to. They're going to develop them. And I prefer this kind of development where we get residents who stay and eat here and shop here and get their dry cleaning done here, as Mr. Colbert said, rather than having a 3-story office building, a medical building probably, run by Winthrop, where people are going to be coming every single day, hundreds of them, at 9 o'clock to work, all the appointments all day, and then at 5 o'clock they go home and spend money wherever they live. I would rather have it where these people leave our village in the morning, they go to work on a train, they come home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and they go and eat dinner, whether it be at Spaghettini or at St. James or Burrito Boulevard or Yatai or PS Burger or Costa Nova Waffle, which by the way are all, with the absence of St. James, opened within the last 12 to 18 months. I don't think any of us here can say, or I don't think anybody in the audience can say, that you are proud of where our downtown has been for the last 2 decades.
Thank you, Mr. Werther with rebuttal.
Yes, thank you very much. Number one, Mr. Pereira alluded to the fact that we reap benefits, and quite frankly, I don't see what those benefits are. Granted that the village gets some modicum of money in and got a fire truck, but we negotiated for those things before the IDA came into the picture. The benefits that we should have gotten, again, were massive breaks on our school taxes. Second, it sounds like we have an obligation to people who live outside the village. The people who sit on the board have one obligation, and that's to the folks who currently live into the village, not future residents. We don't know who these people are. Quite frankly, we need to take care of our own, we the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert with rebuttal.
I don't know what's happened to the young homeowner. The young homeowner who just moved into the village of Mineola, spending $500,000, has probably a $450,000 mortgage, and he's paying probably around $11,000 in taxes. And all of a sudden we have this developer come in and say, I want to bring up a $10 million building, but I'm not going to be able to pay for it. but I'm gonna need IDA money, credits. So we go to the IDA, and instead of paying the full share of the taxes on a $100 million building, is gonna pay $240,000 for the first year. That's not fair. A young homeowner who's paying $11,000 a year taxes, and then you have a developer with over 300 apartments paying $240,000 a year. That's not right. That's just not fair.
Mr. Cusato, you have a rebuttal.
Not right now.
Okay. All right, the next one, this question is directed at Mr. Colbert. Colbert, sorry. That was bound to happen. All right, Mr. Colbert, one of the biggest points of contention your contenders have against you is saying that you put the village into millions of dollars of debt during your term as mayor. How would you respond to that?
I have a letter here from Richard Dreyer, former treasurer of the village of Mineola. And it should just take 2 minutes to do this. During the fiscal year 2002-2003, excess project funds not required to capital outlay were transferred to the general fund from the capital fund account of the library building fund, the municipal building funds, the ball field funds, the soccer field funds. That transfers were made in accordance with the village procedures followed by the last 3 administrations. The transfer total was approximately $800,000. After the above transfers were made, the general fund had a year-end positive fund balance of $252,000 for the year 2002-2003. This number was reflected in the year-end New York State report and Moody's for a bond rating. During the fiscal year 2003-2004 and before the fiscal year 2002-2003, audited statement and independent audit report was released. The administration directed the village treasurer to reverse the $800,000 previously transferred into the capital projects fund stated above in paragraph 1, resulting now in a negative fund balance of approximately $536,000 for fiscal year 2002-2003. During the fiscal year 2003-2004, the administration directed that the same transfer be transferred back to the general fund, thus resulting in a positive fund balance of $342,000. As a result of reversing the funds from a capital fund account back to the general fund was at the same positive position that it was originally given to the New York State and to Moody's. Thus, the village was never in a bankruptcy situation.
Thank you, we have a chance for rebuttal.
I've never seen this letter, but I can't comment on everything Mr. Colbert said.
I didn't get much of what Mr. Colbert said because he was in a rush. But I'll explain it in terms that you can understand. There is no doubt, and we are reaping some of the benefits from Mr. Colbert's administration. The library, the firehouse, the improvements to the pool and park. Absolutely. He didn't go out and blow $33 million. But what he did do, we all love to play Santa, right? We all play Santa with our kids. But guess what? After they open up those presents in December, come January, we have to pay the credit card bills. And that is the difference, is that he didn't plan, he was great at doing all this, and we are still paying for that. We're still paying, and I'm not making this up, we're paying for snow that was removed in the 1990s. We're paying for tax certs that were borrowed for in the early 2000s. We are paying for construction of roads and streets that were built and paved and have had to be repaved ever since. We are paying for the purchase and installation of parking meters that are probably obsolete. And I'm not making that up. You can foil it and get it from the treasurer, okay? And that's not to say that Mr. Colbert's intentions were not good. Of course they were. But we're here to plan and to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you, Mr. Werther. Mr. Werther, would you like to comment? No, okay. And we're going to move along. Oh, sorry? No, sorry. We're going to move along to the next question. No, we have to move along. I'm sorry. The editor of the Mineola American has informed me that yes, you can rebut.
Facts are stubborn things to ignore. What the administration has been trying to tell, past administration has been trying to tell you is that you had a $500,000 deficit for the last 12 years. That's all I've heard for 12 years. We finally are coming out telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we did not have it. Because what happened was that we had money in our bond fund, we transferred it over according to normal procedures. The money was transferred over and then told to recycle it back into the bond fund, causing a diminished general fund. So the general fund then had a $500,000 deficit. So what this letter is saying from the treasurer, the former treasurer of the village of Mineola, is that the village was never in a bankruptcy state.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we're going to move along. This question is for all the candidates, so please, you all have a chance to respond. Governor Andrew Cuomo recently proposed to add a third track line from Floral Park to Hicksville, which would greatly affect the Mineola train station. What are your thoughts on the third track proposal? And we will start with Mr. Werther.
Thank you. I can tell you for a fact that this thing has reared its ugly head once before, and I was very, very active in fighting it. I was the only trustee who was recruited to sit on the executive board of the Nassau County Village Officials Association, and that's a topic that came up very, very frequently. It would be devastating to some of the homes along the corridor for the Long Island Railroad. What's more, if anyone here lives on Albertson Place, there's a good chance that you're going to lose part of your backyard. I don't think that the third track is needed. Again, I don't think that the cost in property, in peace in our neighborhoods is worth it. There are other ways to transport goods. The Long Island Railroad tracks are currently being used to transfer junk, to transfer freight, and you know, as we all know, this is something that the folks living in the North Shore communities might find palatable, but certainly those living along the Long Island Railroad corridor don't. I would fight it.
Okay, thank you. Let's move down the line to Mr. Cusato. Mr. Cusato, do you have a rebuttal?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Sorry. Go down the line, Ms. Pereira.
All right, thank you. I think this is probably one of the issues tonight where you're not going to find a whole lot of disagreement. As Mr. Werther mentioned, this is nothing new to us, and I agree with Mr. Werther on most, if not all, of his points. I actually had the opportunity to meet with the governor himself last Friday, not this past Friday, but the Friday over winter break. And he's trying to sell this to the community. He's trying to repackage it and put some bells and whistles on it. It's the same thing. It boils down to folks that this notion of a reverse commute is not sustainable. It's ridiculous. We know that. The third track, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinions along the corridor, is just an opportunity for them to be able to move more freight through our villages. Or, it's great that somebody in Smithtown can get to Manhattan 20 minutes quicker, but how does that help us? So we're going to bear the burden, but none of the benefits. And so I, along with I think everybody up here, would certainly oppose any plan to add a third track. They have, and they are, one thing that I think we could also all agree on is the need for the elimination of grade crossings. We would love that. And so what they're trying to do is to sweeten the deal by throwing in the grade crossings along with the third track. And we need to try to have them separate those things. Because eliminating Willis Avenue, I'm all in favor of. That would do a lot to eliminating some of the traffic issues that we have. And he's claiming that he can't do one without the other. Well, we'll see, because we're certainly not going to accept having the third track shoved down our throats.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cusato. Just a quick announcement. There's a blue Chrysler minivan that someone left the back passenger door open, license plate FXE9169. Blue Chrysler minivan. All right.
I have to agree. I remember maybe 2 months ago seeing a big headline in Newsday saying, Governor Cuomo, think big. And like Mr. Werther said, well, that's fine unless you live in that corridor. When people have to think small because their properties will be taken away. It's very simple. I'm not in favor of it. And that's what really it's like I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colbert.
Back in the 80s, when we were talking about the elevation or the depression of the railroad, and I think many of you here remember that, It was a standstill with the state as to if they're going to depress it or they're going to elevate it. And then they came down and they said they were going to depress it, and they came out with a figure which was, I think was, I'm off here, $700,000 off, 2.5 million, I don't remember. But anyway, they couldn't figure. Figured, right, the state couldn't figure. What's happening here is when we're talking about the third rail, we're talking about grade crossings, we're talking about eliminating, as they had it originally planned, eliminating Willis Avenue, eliminating Main Street. Okay, that means we would not be able to go north and south on Willis Avenue, or north and south on Main Street. They would make it a pedestrian way, which would go far with the new construction that we're doing. But I just want you to think of what, they can't even throw a traffic light on Willis Avenue. Can you imagine us cutting down the traffic entirely on Willis Avenue and having it just go on Bob Way? Bob Hink Way, it just would not go. And this is where our officials have to stand there like I did with the MTA and tell the MTA president, you have to throw me over the railroad tracks before you can do anything in this village. And the people over on Albertson and the people over on the number streets are definitely affected because a number of people know exactly where those tracks are going to be because the temporary rail was right next to their homes. They could actually put their hand out and get a hot dog from the vendor. And also on Albertson, you're going to take away all those garages and all those backyards from those people. And you know, the state, figure out another way. Don't tread on us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm not rebutting necessarily, just to add something, because like I said, I think it's something that we can all agree on. And in my meeting with the governor, the one thing that I did say is, you know, by coming out and making this announcement before you reached out to the communities, you understand that you just lowered the property values of all those people living along the third line from Floral Park all the way to Hicksville. That was irresponsible. He said, well, you know, these are also my constituents. These are my voters. Your voters are my voters. And one of the mayors, I'm not going to take credit for it, said, yes, but you don't see them at the deli in the morning. You don't run into them at the ball field or at the train station. And we need to send that message as a united group along the corridor that we're not going to bear the burden for somebody else's benefit in Suffolk County or in New York City. Thank you.
Would you like to add?
Yeah, just one thing. Since the tracks are a function of the state, just to reach out to your state representatives, tell them how you feel about the third track coming into our beautiful village. They'll listen to you because you represent a vote that they need desperately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And this question is again for all of the candidates. With home and car burglaries happening all over Nassau County, what improvements do you think Mineola needs to make in terms of public safety? How would you work with police to protect the residents? And we will start with Mr. Colbert. Sure, I'll repeat it. With home and car burglaries happening all over Nassau County, what improvements do you think Mineola needs to make in terms of public safety? And how would you work with police to protect residents?
With all due respect, is there any, Mr. Colbert has started once, and then it went to Mr. Werther, now it's back to Mr. Colbert. Why don't we just go down the line and give everybody the opportunity to speak first?
Okay,
Right,
that's
give
fine.
them a chance.
Go ahead, sure.
It's very simple. We'll go Colbert, Cusato, Pereira.
Colbert will go first and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, but Colbert's gone twice first now. All right? Just in the interest of fairness. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
If we're doing it alphabetically by size or height, I don't know, okay?
Then let's pass it down to Mr. Paul Cusato and then we'll pass it down the line this way.
I know for a fact that our mayor is in constant communications with the inspector of the 3rd Precinct, looking to make our village as safe as it can be. It relies on the response from our 3rd Precinct, whether it needs more police vehicles on the road, but we are actively in pursuit of people that are trying to harm our village, and we're doing the best that we can to protect our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Pereira?
Okay. Thank you. Obviously, this is a part of a larger problem, and I think this problem, as anybody reads, has a lot to do with the heroin epidemic particularly, and that has led to a rise in bank robberies, burglaries, and all that. And as Ms. Cusato stated, I couldn't think of anybody who's better prepared to address this with the 3rd Precinct than Mayor Strauss. and he's in constant contact with the precinct and putting pressure on them to get us the coverage that we deserve. This is an age-old debate in this community, but I do think that there are steps that can be taken to ensure that we get the coverage that we deserve. One of the things that I do applaud the Nassau County Police Department for doing within the last month or two is reinstating the POP officers. They are problem-oriented police. These are neighborhood, essentially 21st century beat cops. They know our school administrators. They know our local elected officials. They know the faces that they're looking for and the names. And when that went away a couple of years ago, a number of us wrote letters to the acting commissioner, Crumter at the time, who's soon to be full commissioner. And I'm glad that they restored that because, it's the old broken windows approach. If we get these kids when they put one tag on a building, then they won't put another one on a building. If we're in touch with the schools and we know the issues that are going on in the schools and we can identify people who are trespassing, doing criminal activity, that certainly helps us as well.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that I had espoused when I was on the board, and unfortunately nothing ever got done with them. Number one, I always advocated putting cameras on public buildings. People who are looking to commit crimes move around quite a bit. I know we had several vandalism issues in our Memorial Park. Had we had high definition cameras recording what was going on in the park in the evening, we might have caught some kids or some adults who were causing trouble. Second thing, and forgive me, this is not my idea, this is one from one of our auxiliary police officers, and I forgot who told it to me, but putting license plate readers on our auxiliary police cars and possibly also on our fire chief cars will help us identify people in the village who are not here with the best of intentions. And finally, and I agree with Mr. Pereira on this, we need to put a little bit more pressure on the 3rd precinct. According to the grid, we're entitled to 4 patrol cars in our village. 2 of them are partial, so on average it should be about 3 patrol cars. We get none for preventive police work. On my block, if we see a police car come down, we call it lost. But those are just a couple of the ideas. And of course, one of the things we can always do as a community is to form a neighborhood watch. We tried that, didn't quite get off the ground, but it's something that we should try once again.
I think the police commissioner ought to be here and answer that. The residents are due everything that they pay for the police tax. I think it's up to our public officials and Scott and our mayor, is definitely, as Mr. Pereira had said, should be is a decorated policeman. And it's up to the police department, who probably should be at a village board meeting and televised over our local station, that what are the things that residents should do. And a lot of things that we can do maybe would help ourselves in the burglaries. But also I notice there's a lot more graffiti in the village now. I don't know why. Down the King Cullen area, it's just filthy down there with the tags. There's tags all over the village, and that seems to be creeping back to us again. And with the tags, seems to be more burglaries. And as Mr. Pereira had mentioned with the POP police, had a great rapport with those guys. And we also had a particular aide that was assigned to the police department, that we worked with them and hand in hand, having special troops coming in from the headquarters to help us with various different things. Maybe that's what has to happen again, is to bring in the special ops group into the village of Mineola undercover and weed these criminals out. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And that concludes the first portion of rebuttal. Ms. Pereira, go ahead.
Again, as many of you have seen the improvements down at Memorial Park, and we do know, we were all teenagers once, and the park, dark behind the old gazebo there, was a great place to hide. Not that I've ever done anything like that. But the park, if you've noticed, if you've gone down there, we have LED lights where people can feel safe walking at all times of the day and night. The park is very, very bright. And to Mr. Werther's point, we're going to be putting in high-resolution cameras as well. We purposely built that band shell so that you could see through it, so that kids could not hang out, hiding behind it or anything like that. So we are absolutely going, kids are gonna go find a place, whether it's under the bleachers or behind a ball field or in a dugout or in the park, and we kind of have to stay ahead of the problem. But we are being proactive, and we are coming into the 21st century and putting cameras at our sensitive sites such as the park, the pool, Wilson Park, and the Little League. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pereira. Any other rebuttals?